You've tuned into InvisiYouth Chat Sessions, a video podcast series. Our episode starts right now. Here's your host, Dominique Weall.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the InvisiYouth Chat Sessions, where you can check in for your dose of stigma-breaking, empowerment-building, humor-filling, life hacks and motivation for all of the medically adultish people in your life. I'm Dominique Weall, the founder of InvisiYouth, and welcome to the first episode of 2019 and the first episode of what is Season 2 of the InvisiYouth Chat Sessions. Now all of you can if you're looking at our YouTube channel, you can see we've had a few upgrades. We have a little bit of a new set that's going to be with us. We have new segments, new graphics, and transitions, so we're so excited for you to see all of that we're bringing for Season 2. And we're also keeping some things very much the same, with InvisiYouth continuing to want to motivate all of you that are with us to bring more life tricks and tips, empowerment, and just a lot of laughs with our amazing guests, because we want you to have your lives be thrilling and fulfilling in so many ways. With Season 2, we are going to be ditching the grouped-themed episode blocks that we had done in the past, and now we're bringing individualized episodes with some super special and amazing guest experts coming on who are leading influencers in their expertise in their lives, so we can have game changers that we know you will love and be motivated and empowered by each episode. So I'm so excited that our very first episode for Season 2 and in 2019 is a teenager that we have been wanting to work with for almost over a year now. We've been seeing and hearing you guys all over social media, sending us her YouTube link, sending us her Instagram handle. So we're so excited to finally be able to have her on as a guest. She is a YouTuber, a British YouTuber, a national champion trampoliner and quadruple amputee, Isabelle Weall. At age 7, Izzy developed meningitis, which resulted in needing to have both of her arms and legs amputated. And now at the age of 15, Izzy has achieved so many goals. Literally, her resume would be like multiple pages long. It is an epic work that she's been able to build. And she's only 15. That is so amazing for anyone to be able to achieve. Some of them are, she's a competitive and award-winning trampolinist. She's won the 2017 Pride of Sport Young Achiever Award. And she runs massively successful social media accounts. Her Instagram, which all of you should follow, has over 360,000 followers, and her YouTube channel is so amazing, and it has over 120,000 subscribers, where she makes videos that range from beautiful makeup tutorials to challenges, some of her videos on her trampolining competitions, and following her life as a quadruple amputee. Izzy's a motivator because she has such passion and fire in her life for challenging herself and taking on risks and being able to be open about how she found ways to live her life to the max. So everybody, welcome Izzy. Welcome to the show, Izzy. How are you?
Hi, it's good to be here.
So excited. I'm so, like I said before, I keep saying I'm so excited, but we really are so excited to have you be our first guest to start Season 2 off. I can't even imagine anyone that pretty much embodies what we want to achieve with InvisiYouth and how we want to motivate other young adults in the world with all types of chronic illness and disability. You are such a prime example of how we like things to be done and how we like motivating empowered young people and having some fun while doing it. So it's going to be a really fun episode, and I'm excited to have you on.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Of course. So we're going to jump right in, and we want all of you guys to get to know Izzy a little bit better, and we're going with our very first segment is the 5-second challenge.
5-second challenge. 5-second challenge.
All right, guys, with 5-second challenge, this is our fun segment for all of you to get to know our guests. We're going to be giving rapid-fire questions to Izzy, and she's going to name the first things that pop in her mind. So, Izzy, are you ready for this one?
I think so.
All right. What would be the top 3 makeup tools that you could not live without?
My eyebrow pencil, my mascara, and my contour.
Oh, okay, cool. What about the best subject you have in school so far?
Maths or business, I can't decide.
Oh, I like that. It's not my 2 favorite subjects. What would be like a favorite author or a favorite book that you've been reading recently?
I've not read it recently, but when I got the Fault in Our Stars, I must have read it about 20 times.
Oh my God,
which is,
John
really
Green.
unusual for me. I never read books.
John
but
Green
I read
is
that loads.
John Green is amazing.
Yeah.
What about the top 3 things that you like to do on the weekends?
Go shopping, make YouTube videos, and do my makeup.
I love it. I love that. What about a couple, like, what are 2 guilty pleasure TV shows that you love to watch?
Pretty Little Liars, literally watched it like 5 times all the way through, and The Vampire Diaries. on Netflix.
Ah, awesome. And now they've had like 2 different spin-offs. They have another one on now too over here in the States. What is your favorite video that you have made so far on your YouTube channel?
I think it was the one I did with both of my brothers. It was called like Awkward Situations as an Amputee, and we basically reenacted the situations and then I explained it, and so many people like could relate to it, like no matter what their disability was. So I think that was like a good response, and it was so fun making it with my brothers.
Oh, cool. I love that. And then what about what's one topic that you really want to do on your channel this year?
I don't know, like I think probably just anything that's trying to break down stereotypes, which I think even if a video that I make isn't aimed on that, it kind of relates to that anyway.
Yeah.
So that's just like an ongoing theme and thing that I try and do with my channel anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. What about if you had to pick 3 dream vacation destinations, where would you want to go?
Sorry, that cut out.
Oh, if you had 3 dream vacation spots, where would you want to go?
LA.
Okay. Bora
Bora, and like Hawaii.
So the sun and the beach, we're going for those. All right, so what would be an award that you would love to win, from like sports to YouTube? What would be like a top award you'd love to win?
I think I'd like to win an award. I don't know what they're called, but like something to really represent my like YouTube success. That's not a word, but whatever. But something like that to represent like how hardworking I am on it, and yeah, something like that to just recognize that.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and you should be winning that. We're putting that into the universe. Izzy's going to win that award. What about if you could be on any sort of talent or competition show? What sort of like reality competition show would you want to give a go on?
I don't know. I always think I should go on like Britain's Got Talent, but I wouldn't know what to do.
You could make a YouTube video on stage.
Yeah, that needs to happen.
There we go. I love that. What would be, if you had to do 2 different collaborations on YouTube, who would be like your dream collaborations?
Okay, so first one would be James Charles. He's like a massive American makeup beauty influencer. That was like the biggest title ever. And then another one is, there's a girl called Molly Burke who is blind, and so her channel is all about like her life. So I think it'd be really interesting to do a collaboration with someone who's got a big following from having like a disability, but obviously totally like does whatever she wants. So I think
my god, those would be fantastic. Molly's so funny. Her channel's hysterical.
I know, it needs to happen.
It does. We're putting that into the universe for you too, Izzy. We're going to put that one in there too. And what would be 3 words if you had to describe your activism style? What would they be?
Determined. Like, light-hearted about it. Like, I'm quite like jokey. And I don't know another one.
Well, those are 2 good ones, though. We have to pick. We don't even need a 3rd word, Izzy. You've just narrowed it down to 2. I like that. So that's the end of our rapid fire, so we can relax now. No more rapid fire questions. No more stress. We're gonna have a nice, relaxed chat now. We're gonna go into our next segment, and it is Chat Me Up.
Chat me up.
Hey, wanna chat?
In our Chat Me Up section, this is where Izzy and I are going to talk about the how-tos and tips on ways that we can get people talking about health and disability and activism. So what can be some of the go-to ways that anyone, from a lot of you who have different chronic illnesses and disabilities, all the way to your friends and family who are more able-bodied, ways that you can approach different topics about disability and chronic illness with others. So one of the first things I wanted to talk to you about, Izzy, is sort of, you talk about this a lot on your, especially that video you just referenced with your brothers, and then also on a lot of other videos you've done about how to talk about disability when you see people sort of giving you like those curious eyes, or people sort of staring but not sure to ask questions. What would be ways that you could have people feel more comfortable or approach you on those topics?
Well, I think the first thing I did to make sure people could know if they didn't want to ask me was by having my YouTube channel, because obviously I have literally full-length videos explaining the story, the recovery, everything like that.
Yeah.
So that is obviously really useful for people that know I have that and can then go and reference it rather than asking me, because I know quite a lot of people are unsure whether to ask me or whether to not.
Yeah.
But if anybody ever asks me, I'm perfectly fine explaining. I think I'm just comfortable with what happened, and I'm fine sharing it.
Yeah.
And with people staring, I guess that's kind of annoying because I do prefer people asking.
Yeah.
But I think I've just gotten used to it and realised that when you do stand out, that's kind of what happens.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think what you mentioned was like a good thing, is that it's hard for other people to have like a lead-in phrase, because I'm similar to you as myself. I'm more of an open book. So if somebody wants to ask me a question, I'd prefer you ask me that question of, oh, why do you have a cane today, or what's going on with your health, versus just staring and starting to make me feel uncomfortable that something else is wrong with maybe my outfit, or there's something in my hair that I'm thinking of, instead of, oh, you look a little different. So I think, yeah, exactly what you said. It is sort of, it is annoying when you're giving those sort of stares. And what I like to say is there's two different types that I will jokingly say I'll get. You either get the very big sympathy look where you kind of have the head tilted and they feel sympathetic for something they don't need to be, or it's the very kind of confused staring. So I always will say to other people who might not be comfortable addressing their health or disability to people that are just public strangers, is giving sort of that confident smile. If you give someone direct eye contact and smile at them, a lot of times they will realize they should stop staring, or that they've been doing it, and then they will be like, oh, okay, and then they go on with the rest of what they were doing, and you can go on as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think sometimes I'll be out and someone will be so direct looking at me that I don't even think they realise they're looking at me. And so sometimes I'll literally sit there like wave at them and just like, hi, because like I'm just like whatever about it. But I totally understand that some people are totally like not and don't want to share what's happened to them. But I definitely think just being all confident and stuff, because I always find it if ever I go out by myself, everyone looks at me way more because I'm not like with anyone else. And so the first time I went out by myself, I was like, oh my God, what's wrong? Because I'm used to getting stared at. But this was like, I was like without clothes on or something. I was actually starting to panic. But I think it's just that no one kind of expects you to be really independent. Yeah. But then I think people were more then looking at me like, oh wow, she's really independent, which is then quite a positive stare. Mm-hmm.
No, I love that. I think that's really, and kind of going off of that too, something you talk about so often is like different, that you have such a confidence in who you are and growing up and being so public in your YouTube and in your competitive sports that you do. So what would be sort of like tips to maintaining that self-confidence, sort of just not even only when you're out in public, but even when you're doing trampolining and you're doing athletics with other teenagers who are competing with you? What are some tips you have to boost your self-confidence?
Well, I think obviously with my disability being really obvious, it's kind of forced me to be really open and honest about it because it's really noticeable. Yeah. So I think that's in one respect has kind of forced me to be confident about it because it's totally always on show. Yeah. And I think I just try to focus on myself. Whether people say things or people don't say things, I just like focus on me and what's happening with me, and just about what I think and stuff rather than trying to avoid any negativity.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think something you pointed out really well that a lot of people could take away from, just even in a logical standpoint, is if you're, especially in the sport environment, you're training around other young people and you're with other people, but even if you were healthy, able-bodied, you would still be very focused with you and your coach or your teammates and be focused on improving and training. So you wouldn't be looking at a lot of other people around you. So I always say to kind of translate that even in going to try athletics when you have a chronic illness or a disability, and still maintain that focus on yourself, and so what you're physically doing and how you're trying to get better. I think, like you had mentioned, it's sort of keeping that focus on why you're actually there is important.
Yeah, and I think I always kind of think about it like I might be self-conscious or be a bit cautious that everyone might be paying attention to my disability.
Yeah.
But I always think, well, there's so many people, like able-bodied people, have insecurities about things in them as well.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I might feel a bit like, oh, everyone's looking at me because like I don't have my arms and my legs on there. But actually, I think everyone's kind of in the same situation, and I think thinking like that makes you think like you're not the only one as well. So I always think that's quite helpful.
Yeah, and honestly, if I watched you trampolining, I would just be freaked out that you're doing flips in the air, because I would never ever do that. I would be so terrified. I'd be like, where's a harness? I need help. So kind of going off of that too, how do you, especially with your YouTube channel and then on social media as well, how do you, what would be sort of tips on getting positive and negative comments sort of in the comments section, as we all have on social media? How do you handle the different comments that you might be getting as advice?
Well, I think whenever you put yourself out there, you've got to expect criticism, whether people are doing it to be constructive or whether they are doing it to be negative. If it's constructive criticism, then I do try and like learn off it. If it's like, oh, the quality is this or your camera's wonky, I obviously learn from that and not make it wonky. If it's negative, quite a lot of the time I try and either ignore it. If it's like trying to be sarcastic but being rude, I will like reply back with a sarcastic comment. And everyone's like, don't do it, but it's quite funny sometimes, so I do. And then others are just negative, I just tend to kind of ignore, because although I might get like hundreds of positive comments, sometimes it's really easy to pick and really be affected by just one negative. But I'll just delete it and then just look at all the positive comments and just focus on that, because I'm doing like what I want to do and I know what I'm doing is like right and stuff. So no one else's opinion really matters, which sounds kind of harsh, but
no, true. It is you started your YouTube channel because it was something that you wanted to do, and doing makeup tutorials is something that you really love. So naturally, it's sort of a desire that you have and putting forward. So it is a very personal decision to be putting yourself publicly. But I liked what you said as well, that it is sometimes, it just takes out of 300 comments, it does take sort of like those two that are there, and it's a hard time to try and not focus on those when you have 298 amazing comments, but it was those two that you're like, oh damn, I wish I didn't read that one. That a lot of times it is trying to focus on looking at the amount of positivity you get back from people is a good piece of advice when you sometimes might get negative comments.
Yeah, definitely.
And I like another thing you said too is a big tip that we'll give out with InvisiYouth is that you're in control of the way you comment, because like you said, you love to kind of like throw the sassy, sarcastic comment back to some people with theirs. We'll always say you can either, it's all really your choice. You kind of have the power in being silent and not responding to the negative comments because it's your personal decision to not do it, or you have the power in being sarcastic and being educational in that sarcasm too. So it really is on both ends. If you choose not to say something or to say something back to other people who are putting out something that's rude or ignorant or even just disrespectful, you do get the choice of how you want to handle that, and it's your choice, so it is your kind of independence in that way as well.
Yeah, and I also think me personally, if I make a joke back to their comment, it means that like their comment just turns into a joke to me as well.
Yeah.
So that's also a way that like all the like jokey ones and stuff that I joke back, and then focusing on like how my reply was funny rather than, oh, you've hurt my feelings sort of thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's a really, like, humor is such a great way to be able to kind of deflect sort of that emotion of what people might be writing. That sometimes a lot of that they're doing as well. And kind of the last sort of chat me up topic is, since you do a lot of activism in the work that you're doing, is activism and just sort of the videos you're putting out and the work that you do publicly, what would be sort of some go-to advice you would have for other teenagers that kind of want to do some advocacy or support other causes?
I think if you know within yourself that you want to do something, then there's nothing stopping you. If you've got the, if you've got enough determination, if it's something that's going to be challenging, or if you've got enough like confidence in it, I think it is possible. And yeah.
No, I like how you said that too, is that if it's something you really like, then it's something you should really passionately kind of fight for to support. And even since you're on, as a lot of other young people are, you're on social media, that's a lot of the ways that you support the work that you do and the other charities that you, like getting to talk to us today, or other charities that you've gotten to do work with, or other causes that you've gotten to do work with. It has that social media elements. We'll even always say, if you don't want to be sort of the advocate in the main voice and putting that forward, it is even just as simple as following people like yourself or subscribing to people like yourself or charities like InvisiYouth, because if you're sort of showing support and you're adding that following and showing support to them, even in a virtual sense, that's a good sort of starting way to get into a more advocacy work as a young person, because you're supporting people who are doing it creatively like yourself or in charity work like InvisiYouth does it.
Yeah, definitely. I think even just like sharing awareness, to say if I post a video that's, I don't know, something that's going to share awareness about, say, awkward situations and stuff, if like just by sharing that, it sounds like I'm self-promoting, but I'm not.
No, shameless plug, and I love it.
Just slide that in there. No, but just by doing that, it's sharing the message, and you don't even have to be the face behind it. Yeah. So I think that's really important for people that maybe don't have enough confidence to stand out and do it themselves.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really great point to even end that segment on, and sort of lets us transition into our next segment, because the videos that you always put out make you such like a rebel game changer, as we like to call, because you are such an activist and wanting to motivate other young people and show them that they can really sort of kick ass and thrive in life. So we're going to go into our next segment called Rebel Game Changer Status.
Rebel Game Changer Status.
With our Rebel Game Changer Status, this is where we go through a step-by-step guide of how you can become an activist, or what InvisiYouth likes to call the Rebel Game Changers. For anything from illness and disability and across the board, it's ways that we can figure out how to become activists, different situations that you can reply into, and what are truly important, and things that can make you a young adult that is doing work and doing something supporting causes. So, main thing I want to sort of ask you, Izzy, is like we pointed at the beginning of the show, you're 15 and you've become really well known for doing the competitive trampolining that you do and your YouTube channel. So how did that start on both ends? How did you get into trampolining, and what was sort of the spark that said, I'm going to start my own YouTube channel?
Well, I started trampolining when I started secondary school, so that was when I was 11, I think. And that was just because it was like an after-school club. Okay. And I basically went for no other reason than my friends were going.
I love it.
I wanted to go because my friends were going. I thought it'd probably be fun. I expected to do some stuff, but I never expected to get as far with it as I have. So that's kind of how that started. And then as I started, or like all through when I was like a little kid, well, not a little kid, but like growing up, I'd seen like becoming a YouTuber and stuff, like being more popular. And I think everyone went through a phase where they kind of wanted to be a YouTuber, but I kind of had always thought like, I could do this and, share, like, because every YouTuber I'd seen was like your like normal able-bodied person. Yeah. And I kind of thought there's a space here for somebody that doesn't quite fit this mold that's actually being created. So I thought I'll take my trampolining and I'll put some videos on the internet. And I started doing that. And after I'd got the response, it really helped me gain the confidence to then start posting other videos. And then it's just kind of developed from there to the point where now I'll just make a video on whatever, and I've got the confidence to do it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I love that you said that too, that it getting sort of that response right away that was so positive made you feel more comfortable sharing parts of your life and your advice sort of in a public manner as well, because it was going to be sort of beyond your social network, and it was going to go to a social media network with a lot more people as well, being able to see somebody like themselves being represented, which I think is a great thing that you saw as a young person, that you weren't seeing yourself on YouTube by other YouTubers, and that was being able to know that you could fill a void that was there for other people who were like yourself, then wanting to see something of themselves on the internet.
Yeah, definitely. I think even now it's getting better, but I still think that it's like so much, you know, space that needs to be filled with other people. I think a lot of it is that people don't kind of have confidence when they are disabled, which is a shame really, because they've got such an amazing story to tell.
Yeah.
And it really helps other people. I find like my channel can help other people that have disabilities, but it helps people that have other situations going on in their lives that you wouldn't even think really related to it.
Yeah.
But everyone kind of takes what I'll say or what I've done, whether it's, say, if I've done a confidence video, I'm doing it from the perspective of not having my limbs, but I think other people take it and twist what I'm saying into something that fits their life.
Yeah. No, I think that's really great, and it kind of goes off of what you had said, is that there are more young people that you are saying that kind of want to be more positive and making sort of changing the establishments that are there, whether it is in YouTube or even just in the media and on television and film roles or in magazine campaigns for fashion, that there's a lot of more young people that are wanting to see themselves be represented. So why do you think that's becoming in the last couple years, especially with your channel sort of booming in the last couple years too? Why do you think that is becoming so popular to show more diversity?
Well, I think it got to a point, I know when I was growing up, you'd look in a magazine and every single person would be like blonde or like have really nice luscious hair and be super skinny, super tall, and literally fit what you'd say was a model. And nobody ever questioned it. Nobody has ever questioned until recently that actually, like, a good 80% of the population don't actually look like that. And, you know, as a child, I would never have been flicking through a magazine and seeing someone with like prosthetic legs. It just wouldn't have happened. So I think it's really important that that gets embraced now, and like it's now the time of diversity, whether it's different body sizes or you know, people with disabilities. So I think now is the time to like act and more people to get involved. I know myself, any opportunity that comes up that I know can help improve diversity, like within people, whether it's, you know, just through my YouTube or doing something like this, I always am like really willing to take it, because I think it's something that needs to happen, because by people comparing themselves to these people, because you do, if you're looking for a magazine and see someone, you're going to compare yourself to it. It's just kind of what people's brains do. So I think it's really important that people are represented that look more like the majority of people, and I think it's really great that that's starting to happen. Obviously it's still got a long way, but hopefully with my channel it can start improving that, and as well with what you're doing. And
I love that you said that too, is like when you were younger and flipping through magazines or flipping through the channels on TV, there wasn't people that looked similar to you in any way or just looked different, and that's sort of what we'll even hear at the charity is just, I want to see some sort of mirror of myself a little bit on camera or in a magazine, or just be able to know that parts of me are publicly existing, that I'm not sort of the very first time I meet new friends, I'm the very first person with a chronic illness that they've met or that they've ever heard about, unless it's like, oh, that one movie or that one episode on Grey's Anatomy, or something that I've seen somebody who had a chronic illness, that they're able to see that while they're growing up, so then moving forward it's not such a surprise or shock, or they have to ask so many questions because they might have a little familiarity with it.
Yeah, I think it's really important for, you know, just the general public to kind of be open to it and maybe have a little bit of knowledge about any type of disability, just so people are more aware of it, and just kind of normalise that is what happens, and people are different, and that's just like a normal thing. It's not like, oh my god, look at her, she's so different. Like, it shouldn't be that way. And so I think trying to do this, it's gonna definitely help a lot. And I think it's important as well for the people, like you say, I never had anyone to look up to, and it's like, as a child, I never had like an older role model that I could look and see in the paper or whatever that had gone through their life like as a disabled like child and then growing up. So it's good that people are now starting to get that and have that kind of role model in their life. Yeah,
no, absolutely. And I kind of going off of that too, what would be some sort of ways that you personally feel like you are able to rebel against sort of the stereotypes of, even as a young person that has a disability or illness, or just what is sort of like the perfect YouTuber, perfect athlete mindset? What are things that you think are good to rebel against those stereotypes?
I think one of them is kind of doing things people wouldn't expect me to do. So, for example, trampolining. If you say trampolining, the first thing that comes to your head isn't going to be a quadruple amputee. Like, that's not what's going to happen. So I think by doing that, that's kind of, pushing the boundaries and breaking these stereotypes. And even just by there being loads of YouTubers that, all say this stereotype or whatever, and then just kind of adding me in there, like, I am a little bit different. But just little things like that, I think are really important, just to kind of add things in there that aren't the same and that do add a little bit of differentiation and stuff.
Yeah, and I think one thing too, when I was talking to some of my volunteers and my team with InvisiYouth, when we were trying to describe sort of what especially your activism that is very heavily in your YouTube channel, we were trying to like think of how do we describe Izzy's style of activism, because it's so youthful and it is so like quintessentially you. And I said, well, it's sort of like just subtle activism, which just made sense. We're like, oh, there's this whole network of young people like yourself that are, what we kind of say is like, some people say, oh, I just accidentally became an activist. So you see me fighting disability rights and being an activist and advocate and showing the diversity and what I can do in my daily life. And for you, it is very like subtle activism. So it's not blatant, and sort of, as we like to say, it's not standing on the soapbox and ranting at people about why everybody is so not giving rights to disabled people and you're getting very angry at society. It's, you put out these videos of just showing different things that you're doing, of how I do my makeup and 10 different things that I have to do extra as an amputee, or why I don't have prosthetic arms. And it's just sort of videos that you get thousands and thousands of views on, and it's just sort of subtly giving knowledge to people, and they're watching, they're entertained, they're enjoying, they're laughing with you, they're learning, and by the end they're like, oh, I just learned like all this information in 15 minutes of an Izzy video. I didn't even realize I was being informed. And it's just this sort of mellow activism style that you've been able to really hone in on as a young person, that I think is something a lot of other youth and young adults could pick up on, because it is very natural how you are able to do that.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I don't go around with a billboard or whatever, being like, do this. And as far as like at the moment, I don't think I would, because I think people can watch my videos and they don't feel like they're getting a message or being like something thrown at them, or being like, but I'm showing them like the reality of being a quadruple amputee, because so many people have these ideas in their heads. And I mean, I was in a taxi the other day and the guy's going, oh, how do you feed yourself? And that to me is so basic and easy, but it's obviously things that people just don't even consider, because they're not shown and they don't understand, because they've not been exposed to someone.
I'm shaking my head for everyone listening on our podcast. I'm like shamelessly shaking my head as he's explaining the story. Like,
and I was like, I put the food in my mouth.
How do you chew and swallow your food? I'm pretty sure it's the same way.
Yeah, I think the digestive system works the same between person, but I can explain that to you if you want. But I do think there is this kind of I used to get it a lot in school. People would think that I was not very smart because I had a physical disability.
Oh, Lord.
And I was like, just breathe, just breathe.
Just take a step.
It get me really angry. So I think just by showing people the reality, I do focus on the positives a lot, because I do think the negatives are already plastered everywhere with everyone's, preconceptions. But I will mention, this is a bit hard actually, but I'll show people what is actually possible, and kind of that way I think people learn things and they're educated about it without even realizing.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I even sort of going off of that too, when you said there's so much that is the misconception, and the stereotypes are always so they're sad and melancholy, or and depressive or negative when it comes to being, especially even more so being a young person, a teenager and a young adult with a chronic illness or disability. It always is sort of that negative mentality is already the stereotype. So you sort of being able to have the positive and even show that the real image of things that are more challenging for you, you even put that sort of positive and humorous spin on explaining that to people, and that does show the other side of just what your daily life is really like, and what it is for hundreds of thousands of other people with all different types of illnesses or disabilities, that it's not all sad and negative. There's a whole other side to just every day.
Yeah, definitely. I literally think everyone, before they've watched one of my videos, will be thinking her life must be awful. And I get comments like that sometimes, and I'm like, no, it's not. I go out, I do this, I'll go shopping, I get to make videos and stuff, and that's my job. I go to school, I talk, that isn't just my life.
Yeah.
And I think that's another thing. People think that you've got this disability, or you say chronic, can't say that, chronic, how do you say that?
Chronic illnesses.
Chronic illness.
There you go.
And that was really challenging. But you have a disability or a chronic illness, and people think that is your life.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of the label you're given, but it's totally not. I'm a quadruple amputee, but I'm a YouTuber, or I'm this and that. I don't just have to be that. And I think that is kind of where this whole negative thing comes around, because people see that, they think that, and that's it. They think that that's all your life entails, but it actually doesn't. And I don't think anybody that actually experiences life with a disability actually thinks that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I kind of even going off of that too, it is sort of that self, like we talked about before, your self-confidence, and you showing a lot of that in your videos. You even recently put out a video and just said the title of it is Why I'm Confident. So kind of going off of that, of how you are really a game changer when it comes to being an activist in that way and being a young person. What are some of the takeaway tips you have of boosting your confidence that you would give to other young people?
I think being positive about yourself. Obviously, if you look at yourself and are negative about different things of your body or of how you are, you're not gonna feel confident.
Yeah.
And I think confident, like I said in that video, confidence is almost a choice. Mm-hmm. Because if you're choosing to be in a negative headspace, things aren't gonna go the way you want them to. It's the same with, if you're looking at a maths equation, it's not going to go right if you're going to be I can't do it.
Yeah.
So I think you kind of have to be like that. I think it is definitely a process, learning to embrace what does make you different, mm-hmm. and learning to accept it, but then learning to work around it and kind of, I don't know how to explain it, but have that in your life, but work off it.
Yeah.
So it's there and it's involved, but you're doing other stuff around it. It's not just the sole focus and purpose of your life.
Yeah, and I kind of like how you said that it is that confidence sort of is a choice you have to make every day, and trying, and even if you have a bad day and you're I'm not feeling super confident in myself today, you can wake up and try it again the next day and make that choice. And I'm going to be bringing in like a shameless connection to your guilty pleasure TV show, Pretty Little Liars. But I remember so many years ago, the girl that played Spencer, Troyan Bellisario, did an interview talking about how she improves her mental wellness and in her life. And she said, I had somebody tell me one time that if I just looked in the mirror, if I was feeling sad, I would just force myself to physically smile. And then eventually, after I was doing it for a while, I would subconsciously start to feel a little bit better because I was physically putting in the effort to smile at other people and knowing, okay, you have to keep smiling, just try smiling. And eventually it kicked in and she started to feel a little bit better. So she always said for her mental wellness, she would always try and focus on that too, of just if I'm having a bad day or I'm not feeling confident or I'm a little sad, to try and physically smile and make that choice to try and help herself throughout the day. So I think even like you said with confidence, that is sort of a key in point for both ends.
Yeah, definitely. I also think I try not to compare myself to other people because I know me comparing myself even to one of my friends, it's totally unrealistic because I'll be comparing myself to someone that's got limbs and that's not the reality of my life. So if I'm, say, following someone on Instagram that makes me feel unhappy about myself, then I will just unfollow them, and it kind of sounds a bit mean, but it's, to better yourself. And I do think just in general, looking in the mirror and saying stuff that it sounds like really cheesy, but I do think it works. And I do so I'll have a negative and then try and change it into a positive or find the positives in it. Yeah. So my sole focus on that one thing isn't just the negative sides of it. So I kind of see half and half. So yeah, it's then not my favorite thing, but it's then not my worst thing.
No, I love that. No, that's such a good tip too, is to even find the things that you think are negative or things that upset you and try and look at them from a positive angle. So then you have both emotions to it. I think that is actually a really fantastic piece of advice to give to other young people. Definitely.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I'm speaking of Izzy giving fantastic advice. We're going to go into our intermission segment that I like to call is our midway point of the episode. And it is our story time segment called So That One Time.
So that one time.
So with our intermission segment of So That One Time, we always say that the best ways to learn is from learning from other people's experiences and getting to teach other people through your own life experiences. So why not on the InvisiYouth chat sessions have a segment where we ask each of our guests to always share a life story that they have with us, whether it's really humorous or impactful or shows ignorance or shows a lot of empowerment or enlightenment. We want to hear a fun story, and also it's because I know, guys, you don't want to keep hearing my voice for an hour, so I get to sit back and relax and let my guests tell me a story. So I'm giving Izzy the mic and the floor and the camera, and she's going to tell me a story.
Okay, so basically, it's not a funny story, but this is my moment of realization. Wow, I sound like Kylie Jenner. Anyway, so I last year got invited to go to America. Ooh. So I was super excited because it was the first time I'd ever been invited to go on a trip with anyone. It wasn't my first time in the States, but it was really exciting for me because I wasn't paying for it. Someone else was paying for it for me, and that was exciting to me that someone wanted to do that. Yeah. So basically, it was to do a TEDx talk. Oh. So when I first found out about that, I was scared, and my mum was talking to me about it. I remember, and she was like, "Oh, it'll be in front of about 500 people, and you have to do it twice." So I was like, "That's 1,000 people in the space of 4 hours. That's a lot." And my mum was like, "Do you want to do it?" And I was like, "Yeah." And mum was like, "Aren't you going to be absolutely petrified?" And I was like, "Yeah, but that's why I want to do it." Yeah. Anyway, so I planned this whole talk, and I'm in America. So I was all excited and stuff when I was in America, but it kind of didn't really hit me. And so my whole talk was basically about my progression through my life, what happened when I was 7, and then how I'd kind of recovered from it and got to the position I was in. And so I'm stood waiting to go and do this talk in America, and there was loads of people there, but it only hit me when I stood on the stage and when I finished that I realised I'd been speaking for the whole like 8 minutes or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And I'd been talking about my journey, and I don't think I'd ever realised how far I'd come until I was stood on that stage, because that was something that once like wasn't possible for me.
Yeah.
I was stood there and had spoken about how I'd gone from a wheelchair, and then I'd started walking, and then I learned to run, and then trampoline, and I'd done all of this stuff. And it was when I was just stood there and everyone was like applauding me at the end, I was like, oh my God, like I've achieved so much. I've gone from almost dying to being in America and doing this, and I'd got that opportunity because of everything I'd done. So that was kind of one moment that really just hit me, like, oh my God, you've achieved so much, Izzy. And I was like 14 at that time, so yeah.
No, and I love that too, because a big thing we'll always say to people is give yourself some credit when you've achieved different things, because you do, as someone with a chronic illness or a disability, you do have to adapt and sometimes take extra steps to do different things that your friends or siblings might not have to do. And when you get to achieve different things, I always will say through the charity or when I'm doing speaking as well, take in those moments and just really appreciate where everything you've gone through, positive and negative, to get to that point. And I love that you said that it didn't really hit you until you stood there and you were in another country and you're giving a speech to hundreds of people and you start to list out everything you've gone through and everything you've achieved, and you're like, wow, if I'm listening to myself give this talk, if I was sitting in the audience, I'd be really impressed with that girl. And it was just, I love that you said that too, because it's really nice to always, on a personal level too, to have those moments of just sort of being like, damn, Izzy, you did a good job in life so far. Like, that's really great.
Yeah, I think because I'm so, like, determined, when I actually do things, I don't, like, pay attention to what I've done. And I'm just, like, straight on to the next thing once I've, like, learned something or whatever. So I think I've never done something and been like, oh, well done. So that was definitely my moment of like, you've done good, Izzy.
I love that. So going out of story time, going back into our regularly programmed segments, I'm going to take even some more life advice from Izzy and sharing it with all of you. And this is I like to say, our note-taking section of the show. And we're going to go into What's Your Life playlist.
What's your life playlist? What's your life playlist?
With What's Your Life playlist, this is where we get to chat about some of the latest trends, gifts, quotes, apps, different YouTubers, different activities that are really helpful to make life more accessible and make life more adaptive and fun, things that have been what we would put on a playlist for our lives that our guests have been able to find, that we've been able to find, that all of you can start to add into your daily life as well and be able to find new things that make life more accessible, more diverse, and then just new things that are really fun and we think you should be adding into your playlist of life. So the first one is, naturally, as a professional YouTuber, I want to know, what are some favorite fellow YouTubers or athletes that you really like that you would suggest people follow?
I think athlete-wise, it'd probably be Nia Wilson, who I actually did a collab with, so you should go watch that.
Ooh.
But yeah, he is a British gymnast, and he does like gymnastics related videos, and yeah, they're really funny. So he's a good YouTuber to go check out, sports related one. Yeah.
I like that. And even you mentioned at the beginning of the show too, who you'd want to collab with. Molly Burke is one of our always prime YouTubers when we tell people, if you want to search on YouTube and put people on a playlist and put Molly Burke's channel on, you'll definitely with Molly. So what about what would be some different sporting opportunities or ways to get physical, get active? What would be some tips or different avenues that you would suggest for other young people who want to get into sports?
I think for people who are in like school, I definitely think it's easier because a lot of schools offer like sports club thingies after school or whatever. So for me, obviously that's how I got into trampolining. I think a lot of getting into sport and stuff is just making the choice, even if it's just, are you going to walk or are you going to drive, that kind of thing. But yeah, I think definitely school is a massive help for most people to get into clubs, because you can go with your friends, you can go and just be kind of chill about it, before you can go and be ready to like win competitions.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think kind of even going off of that too is knowing that there is sort of that tunnel of going into being in school, and they have those opportunities for you to give it a try and see if you like different types of sports. And even in sort of the adaptive sport community, it's something that I will always mention is there are so many nonprofits and companies that promote different adaptive sporting programs, and disability sports is sort of their mission and what they provide. Just even on my backstory that a lot of you guys know, my chronic illnesses were developed because I was a competitive tennis player and I got injured in training, which developed my neurovascular disorder and everything that I have on my left side. So I always will say that if I had my physiotherapist or doctors mention that there was adaptive sports and there was wheelchair tennis and there was other things that I could have done athletically for adaptive sports, that would have been such an amazing avenue for me. So I always will suggest, even in the charity world, to kind of look up and just even simple Googling of different what would be sort of like adaptive sporting clubs or clinics or companies. One that we love in the UK is Activity Alliance, where they bring a lot of inclusive sports to young people of any age with any illness or disability. So it is sort of giving that search if you're out of school as well, or even just in the summer and you want to try sports. Never let that mindset of, oh, well, I have an illness or I have equipment or I have a disability be the thing that might stop you from giving it a try, because it is, like you always say, sports is a fun outlet that you have and you've found so much success in.
Yeah, I think one of the main things that kept me in sport after I got ill was a charity called Limb Power.
Okay.
And they offer days for like, I think they do like a more small child one and then like an older/adult one. And they basically do a day where they show you loads of sports and stuff. And things like that were really useful for me to still know that sports were an option if I wanted them to be for when I was a kid. And yeah, so things like that are always really helpful, just to expand your horizons and see what you're interested in.
Yeah, no, I love that. And what about going off to the other side? What are some like favorite brands or even like makeup brands that you like that are either that you just really like to use, or ones that are very inclusive or diverse in sort of their branding?
I'm not sure. I think just generally any brand that I see at the moment that is being really diverse, whether it's a foundation in the shade range or whether it's the people that are advertising it, I think that really makes me more interested in the product, because I'm kind of like, you're a good brand. So I'm not sure what my favorite would be, but I'm definitely steered towards some of the brands that do more stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've been seeing it more and more, like even ASOS, so like the clothing line, a lot of their models, there's a couple of their models that have prosthetic limbs, and they're in their clothes and modeling for them. So like you had said,
Yes.
even when they're showing that with their products, it is really, it kind of gives you that extra interest, being like, oh, I bet their clothes actually would be comfortable to wear, and then I could actually wear them as well.
Yeah, it helps you imagine yourself in that product.
Yeah.
And kind of relate to who's advertising it.
Yeah, the one that we saw recently was they're a Canadian design studio, and they've done like very fashionable prosthetics for legs, which is alleles, which they look like plastic little clip-ons that are designed pieces for prosthetic legs that we've seen a lot of our Canadian young adults being able to wear, and some of them have become models for the design studio. And they had a campaign video called With Now This, which is a big activism video that we saw kind of fall onto our Twitter feed as well in the past few weeks. And that was what their designer said was, we want people that it is such an expensive, which a lot of people don't realize, it is expensive to buy prosthetics. And you sometimes want to have different styles like other people would want. As one of their designers says, I want to be able to wear different shoes or wear different clothes, so I should have different clips and different pieces that I can make my prosthetic look fashionable in different ways. So that was a new sort of step in the mechanics and science in the disability community that we were really impressed with when it came to the fashion side recently. And then kind of even going off of that, what about sort of different, what's like some favorite TV shows that you have now, either that have diversity or just TV shows, or different music now that you are really into?
I quite like Little Mix's new album because that's like super like woman empowerment
Yeah.
and body confidence. So you have quite a few songs that are like that. So that's always like my go-to playlist if I want to feel like really like confident and really like hi. That is like the go-to playlist because it is really like confidence and all sorts of songs like that. And then it's like Little Mix, so good songs.
Good songs. You know you're going to listen to good music when it's Little Mix. Yeah, I kind of, even going off of like TV shows, will always say, I always will promote, we always joke that when you kind of fall into the tunnel that is Netflix, sometimes it's fun to find like the other more unique shows, and we'll always say, oh, you always have like different casted shows with scripts, and the documentary ones I always will say, or sometimes they're the fun ones that you can kind of get sucked into, and the one that we've been hearing about most recently was Tidying Up with Marie Kondo, which is just sort of like a show about being really tidy, and she goes into people's homes and their offices and just organizes for them, and as she says, she lets them choose joy while cleaning, and it's very cathartic to watch other people clean, because you're not doing it, but it's very interesting to watch other people clean.
I have heard of that one.
You have to try it. I even then had volunteers say, oh, well, there's YouTubers that just do decluttering videos, and I was like, wow, I've never heard of this, and this is so interesting to watch.
I don't think I'd ever do one of them because it's too much effort.
To clean and look at it and while watch yourself cleaning, being like, oh, where am I putting those things? And kind of even going off of that too, because like you had said in the beginning of the show, you're still in school as well. So what are things or different apps or tools that you use to help you stay on schedule? Because you not only have like a school schedule with the work that you're doing, but then you have a YouTube schedule as well. So what are things that you've done to help keep you on track and keep you organized?
Well, I always just use the Notes app on my phone. I always find that's I think having things on my phone makes things much more accessible for me to access because it's just there. I'm always got it with me. So that's one thing that keeps me like organized. I always set reminders when I have to do things because I just don't remember things. I always forget. So that's one way. If I've set a reminder about it, I will get it done. But yeah, I think having things on the internet as well help kind of balance the thing between like writing something or doing like paperwork and then having something on the computer as well.
Yeah, no, I like that you said that too, because we'll always, one big suggestion we'll say is when we have a lot of young people that are in the States, if they're trying to go to college and they're studying for SATs or their ACTs, and I know in the UK you do GSCEs or GCSEs?
GCSEs.
There we go.
And then after you've done your GCSEs, you go and do your A-levels. So I'm doing my GCSEs this year, and then in 2 years I'll do my A-levels.
There you go. And so, like, I know those are, like, massive tests and they take a lot of time to, like, study and everything, but then you can get so focused that it becomes so stressful doing all that studying. So, like you said, finding things that you can kind of have on your laptop or your computer to be able to watch for a little bit to kind of relax you and then go back into studying, we'll say, is having those playlists of different YouTube videos or music that you can have as sort of, like, your stress relief playlist is a good tip to have and keep you focused and keep you energized when you're going through a lot of massive studying that you would need to do to pass different, like your A-levels later on and different tests that you'll have to do. It's helpful to give yourself a little stress break, as we like to say.
Yeah, definitely. I think with everything, having a little break, although it might seem like you kind of giving up, is totally not. It's just giving yourself a breather, because I'll be, trying to do schoolwork and trying to do YouTube and trying to do this for this person and whatever, and I just sometimes have to be like, Izzy, like, take 20 minutes, go sit and watch something, or go scroll through your phone and just like remove yourself. And then when you come back into the situation, I always think you're much more like fresh minded, and it actually helps you think better because you've like removed yourself and then you've gone in and look at it from a different perspective or whatever.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love that you said that. And especially like that 20-minute window we'll always say is you can watch one episode of like a comedy show, or you can watch like 2 YouTube videos within like 20 minutes. And it's just like a nice sort of stress relief of sort of having those different people you're subscribed to, like people subscribing to you on YouTube, and being able to have that and sort of get a de-stressor. It helps you refocus and not continue sort of getting very stressed when it comes to work that you're doing, and knowing you got to take time and self-care for you while you're trying to stay in school and doing other activities as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and going off of that, sort of different life scenarios that you'll need to kind of want self-care and motivate yourself with, we're going to go into our final segment with Izzy called In an Ideal World. Ideal world segment, we always talk about wanting to improve society and erase stigmas and misconceptions and make it a more inclusive and comforting and acceptable world. But those are massive boulders to have to push up the mountain by yourself, and it can take a lot of time to do those. So with our guests and in this segment, we not only talk about what would be an ideal world for young people living with chronic illnesses and disability to make that more accessible and inclusive, but different things that we can maybe do to bring those steps forward and bring that veil down of stigma and misconception. So, Izzy, kind of what stigmas were like the top ones that you would most want eliminated as a young person with a chronic illness or disability in your case?
I think people assuming what you can do, because that is just annoying, and people having a negative view on a disability, because everyone seems to see it as like the worst thing that could ever possibly happen. But there is life after a disability or life after getting diagnosed with something. And I think people should like realise that and know what is actually capable and what's possible.
Yeah, I love that you said that. One of the big ones I was even going to bring up to you, just hit a nail right on the head, was people questioning capability and seeing what you're capable of and sort of immediately misconceiving and misjudging what you'd be able to do because of what they might, even if they can physically see a disability or an illness, then they're judging what you can and what should be your limits when they don't even know. So that, I think, is a big one. And then another one that we'll say kind of goes off of what you were sort of touching on about having a positive mindset is not just sort of the negative connotation of living with illness or disability, is what we'll always hear is, I'm putting it in air quotes, sort of that like inspiration porn mentality that people have when they'll see you achieve anything and they'll go, that was so inspiring, you walked up the flight of stairs, and you're going, well, a lot of people can do that, or just that sort of mindset that when you achieve something, when you have an illness or disability, it's overwhelmingly inspirational to other people. We'll always say that's sort of a stigma that everyday achievements are massive achievements for other people that are healthy or able-bodied is a misconception that we would like to remove for the chronic illness and disability community.
Yeah, definitely.
No, yeah, I like that. And then kind of even going off of that, since you are in sports and when you do trampolining, and then I know you've even talked at one point, you were talking about getting into like trying to do race car driving when you're able to drive and seeing that avenue of different things you could do as well. What would you really want to bring sort of inclusivity in the sport community to show all different types of athletics?
I think just the basic thing that you don't have to fit a certain mold or a certain stereotype or a certain description to be interested in something, whether it's makeup, whether it's sports or anything. Like, you don't have to have hands to hold a makeup brush. There are other ways around it. And you don't have to have legs to be able to run. And I think it's that people are like, legs are for running, you know, fingers are for holding things. It's like, well, actually, when you actually experience something like, you know, going through amputations, that isn't actually what they're there for anymore, because they're not there and you have to kind of find a different way around it.
Yeah, and I like, because when you do your trampolining competitions, you're doing them with your school, so you're competing against other girls that are able-bodied as well, right?
Well, I compete in a disability category.
Okay.
However, it's a physical disability category. There's two categories. There's the physical one, and then there's the more mental side behind a disability. So like learning difficulties and stuff. So the category ranges from people such as myself, and then people that have like epilepsy, who only really like struggle when they're having a seizure. So it's definitely a very wide spectrum. So yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I like that because you're going to competitions and it is immediately right away from an athletic standpoint, you're seeing diversity just in, even in your category of athletics of what you're doing. There's so much diversity in that, which I think is great in sports to show. And one thing we'll always say that would be great is to be able to be able to do those combinations. One that we always really love to promote is like when you have the Olympics and then you have the Paralympics, but they're on 2 different television networks in most countries. And one thing that we'll say is like they should be equally supported on television, so more people will get to see all of these amazing athletes that are in the Paralympics and what they're able to do and those competitions as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know one thing we had recently, it came back up to us, and because I was a tennis player as well, was sort of showing that mainstream element of disability sport, if you will, was a wheelchair tennis player, Dylan Alcott from Australia, won his 5th Australian Open title in a row, and it was the first year when he gave his speech that his tennis match was on the same network as all of the men's singles and women's singles tennis matches were on as well. He was on the same network as them, and so it was amazing. It was the one thing he said was that now all of you, these millions of people who watched tennis have just been able to watch me win my 5th title, and how fantastic that was. And Will Smith has done like a video with him and shown him how to play tennis and wheelchair tennis. So like you said, when you're even competing in trampolining, other people are watching you and being able to see what you and other people you're competing against being able to do. And I think that visibility is very important.
Yeah.
Yeah, and kind of going off of that too, what would be sort of goal?
Always see it in their everyday life, so I think that's really important that it does get the same exposure in a sporting event or whatever.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I think that's so important as people can be able to see when there's just so many layers and so many types of athletes, and being able to compete on all different types of scales is really a cool way of bringing sport to more people.
Yeah.
And kind of going off of that too, what would be some ways that you would want to eliminate sort of that judgment of accepting other people's differences? So even if that's sort of internal judgment of being self-conscious, or other people that are watching you doing different YouTube tutorials, or you doing athletics, what would be what you would want in terms of how other people should be accepting of others' differences?
I think people shouldn't make preconceptions or anything before they actually know the person and know their individual capabilities and stuff. I think with judgment, I think you're always going to get it, but it's learning that, I don't know, the disability isn't like the negative about them, which I think is, a lot of people understand that. There are still a few people, so I think that's definitely quite important as well.
Yeah, and I even kind of, like you said, it's that open-mindedness and sort of taking that the main stigma of people assuming that a chronic illness or a disability is like a sad thing, that a lot of people are like, oh, it just makes my life so much worse, when actually, like, I've built a nonprofit while living with chronic illnesses, and you've built this successful YouTube channel while living with a disability, and that you're still very proud of every day and being a kick-ass 15-year-old doing really cool things and making really fun videos. And it's not like, oh, that's the sad part of my life, or that's the negative part of my life. It's, no, that's just part of my life, and my life's great with that as part of it too. And being able to show that publicly kind of takes that preconceived judgment, like you said, out of the equation, because you're showing how much fun and how much you're able to achieve in daily life of what you're doing.
Yeah, and just proving other people wrong.
Yes, definitely. Proving other people wrong and not putting angry tweets out into the world, as I like to say. No angry tweets, just prove people what you can do. And kind of the last question going off of that is, like, we'll always say when it comes to this segment of In an Ideal World, is we can sort of say, oh, well, just remove the stigmas and then everybody will be inclusive and bring diversity. But that's sort of easier said than done. So we kind of like to end on that note with guests of how do you sort of continue to maintain that positivity of if you do get sort of negative feedback like we were talking about before, what's the one thing that you will do to kind of motivate yourself to go, no, I'm going to do another video, even if you get pushback, you're like, no, I'm going to make another one, I'm going to do another competition. So what would be your sort of big piece of advice of continuing even if you hit some struggles or some walls of difficulty?
I think if something's difficult, it kind of makes me more determined because I want to do it. Same ways as if I did a competition and it didn't go so well, I'd want to then do another one to prove that I could do it and that was just like a bad day. And so, yeah, I think it's just the determination to want to keep going and want to prove that you can do it and find your way to the end. And that can be a bit difficult sometimes, you know, maintaining that determination the whole way through, but it's definitely really crucial.
Yeah, and kind of even going off of that too is sort of showing yourself that you can always find ways to adapt and push through sort of the struggles that you're having of different activities you want to do. And then also, like you had mentioned too, sort of having that fun support network of you have a whole social media community that loves your videos and loves what you do. You have your family involved and your friends, and getting them involved too is not only are you sort of opening their eyes and they're learning different ways of living life, but also you're showing a whole other community to your social media following and stuff that you have this massive support system that encourages you to keep trying and helping you along as well. Yeah, I love that. So we're going to end on that note with Izzy and end our episode. So I want to first, before we let Izzy tell you all where you can watch these amazing videos and find her on Instagram, I want to thank Izzy for being on our show. It was so much fun having you, and I'm glad we were finally able to do it.
Thanks for having me. It's been fun.
And I want you to be able to tell everyone where they can find you on social media. So where can people find you on Instagram and on YouTube and everywhere else online?
Okay, so my YouTube is just my name, so it's Isabelle Weall, and you'll find all of my videos on there and any other videos that have happened. But yeah, obviously, like we've mentioned, they range from everyday life as an amputee to strange makeup tutorials. So that's that. And then my Instagram is @its.is, and yeah, see my fashion, my makeup, and me pulling weird faces. That's basically my Instagram summed up in like a mini sentence. So yeah.
Yep, so we're going to link all of them below in our YouTube video, so make sure you go into the About section right underneath here, and we'll be able to link all of Izzy's awesome social media handles for you to go follow and subscribe to her, because we do, and it's fantastic, and I love her makeup videos when they pop up on our Instagram feed. I always end up watching them when we go through. They're so much fun. And like we tell you guys all the time, you can find InvisiYouth on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at InvisiYouth. Our InvisiYouth chat sessions, our visual show is on our YouTube channel, and you can listen to this podcast on pretty much every podcast network under the sun, from iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, and more. So make sure you give it a thumbs up, you subscribe, you hit the like button, 5 stars, however it goes on whatever channel you're listening or watching us on. And again, I want to just thank Izzy for being on the show and everything. And I'm hoping, I'll say we can do some more awesome work and getting to collab with this fantastic girl. And like I said, the one day when you are making a video with Molly Burke, we are going to say the idea happened here, we're going to say. So I want to thank everybody again, and we will see you and listen to you again on our next episode. Bye, everyone.